Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. 1 year ago, I did a video where I read a few books that were recommended to me by book professionals. So I had a recommendation from a librarian, a bookseller, and a booktuber. And it was so much fun, so I wanted to do a part 2, and that's what we're gonna be doing today. So I am getting book recommendations from 2 different types of book professionals. The first one is a librarian. We're doing the librarian again. In the first video, the librarian recs were just so beyond what I even imagined. I didn't end up liking the book that I chose, which was on me because she gave me tons of suggestions. So we're doing a redo for the librarian recs. We're giving another chance. Then the second book professional that I will be getting recommendations from is actually a paid book recommending service called TBR, which is Tailored Book Recommendations. I've seen a lot of booktubers make videos about this service, and I've always been curious to try it myself. So I'm gonna be putting these 2 services head-to-head, librarians versus a paid service, and we're gonna see who can recommend me the best books. In order to make this fair, I'm going to be asking both of them for similar things. I'm specifically going to be asking for horror books or just darker books, books with spooky vibes, and seeing what they give me. Alright, so we're gonna start with getting my librarian requests, but I'm using the exact same service that I used in part 1, and I'm hoping I get the same librarian. That would be amazing because I feel like she really understood my taste. Even though I didn't end up loving the book that I read from her recommendations, she recommended me a lot, and a lot of the books actually that she had recommended I'd already read and loved. So I feel like we were on the same wavelength, okay? So I'm hoping I get her again. We'll list some books, subjects, authors, podcasts, movies, TV shows. I'll do horror books, please. And then what can I say? This one has very limited characters, so The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. I guess I'll just list some books that I like. Into the Drowning Deep by Mary Grant. What are some others? Slewfoot by Brom. I kind of want to hit on different types of horror. Grady Hendrix. I'll just like put some of the themes just in case they don't know what these books are. I'll do dark fantasy also, like it doesn't have to be strictly horror. Cults, post-apocalyptic, witches. Okay, now I'm out. So I feel like that was a good broad range of things. And then it says to listen things you have not enjoyed. I don't know, I'll just leave that one. And then I'm gonna say for genres I want fantasy or horror, or should I just do horror? Yeah, no, let's just do horror and mystery and thriller and suspense and submit. All right, so I'm going to sign up for this TBR service. Basically how it works, like a quarterly subscription, it's $15 for the book recommendations, or there's a plan where they actually send you the books, which is much more expensive. So to just get the book recommendations, it's $15 and you get 3 book recommendations, I think. So that's $5 a book, which is it's a little steep, but I do think that they have like a comprehensive questionnaire that you fill out to tell them what you want. I think you can also link your Goodreads so they don't recommend you books you've already read. What are your favorite genres? Horror, fantasy, romance, and sci-fi. Okay, is there anything you want to explore more of in your reading life? Yes, I would like some horror/spooky books. What are the last few books you really loved and why? Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chapeko. I'll do Out There by Kate Folk. A Certain Hunger. Okay, so this one you can pick if you want them to like expand your horizons or stick to things that you're super familiar with. I think I'm gonna go with stick to what I'm familiar with. I want what I asked for. Okay. Are you looking for recommendations on a certain theme? Yes. Cosmic horror. My favorite horror book is The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. Space or water horror. Examples I love are Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. I would also like any books about witches / dark magic / cults. Some examples I love are Slewfoot by Brom, The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. Other themes I like are post-apocalyptic, possession, dark fantasy. What are your all-time favorite books and why? I'm gonna do A Dowry of Blood, The Hollow Places, Wayward Children. Okay, any books you absolutely hated. Okay, let me tell them horror books that I hated. So I'll do Tender is the Flesh, How to Sell a Haunted House, Too Silly, The Writing Retreat. Okay, what are a few of your favorite TV shows or movies? I will put Haunting of Hill House, It's my favorite horror thing ever. Train to Busan, Ready or Not, The Witch. Any types of content you'd like your bibliologist to warn you about? No. Any types of content that are deal breakers for you? No. I do like that they ask that though. What is your preferred reading format? Audiobook. Okay, and then you can link your Goodreads. I guess I'll do a bonus if the books are LGBTQ. Okay, I think that is everything with this. I do really like how comprehensive that questionnaire was, which I would expect it to be because you are paying a hefty fee. So I think that this one takes like, I think they say like 2 weeks. So I will come back in a couple weeks and hopefully once I've gotten these recommendations back and the library recommendations and we can open them together. Okay, I just got my email that the librarian recommendations have come in. I got the TBR service one a while ago, but I haven't opened them. So I'm gonna open them both right now. We'll look at the librarian ones first. And I already saw the name of the librarian who emailed me and it's the same one as last year, which is perfect. That is exactly what I wanted because she killed it with her Rex last year. That was like what I was hoping for. Okay, I'm very excited. I'm very excited. Oh my God, she recommended a lot of things. So number 1, The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling, which you guys know I already love this book. So already we're in the ballpark, we're spot on. I'll just read what she said about this one. She said, since you like space horror and Into the Drowning Deep, I'd suggest The Luminous Dead. Chilling and claustrophobic. Yeah, I agree with this. That is a great rec. If I hadn't already read it, that would be perfect. Okay, the next one is The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. Okay, I haven't read this. For fans of Slewfoot and dark fantasy, I'd recommend The Salt Grows Heavy. A lush, imaginative, and sinister story, it follows a voiceless, vengeful mermaid and a melancholy plague doctor as they leave behind their sick city in search of a new adventure. When they stumble upon a cult of creepy children and their terrifying gods, the two protagonists need to rely on their wits and each other to get out alive. There's some body horror among the strong world building and rich language. That sounds amazing. Oh my God, okay. I have read a book by Cassandra Khaw before. It was Nothing But Blackened Teeth. And I feel like that's a book everybody hates and I thought I liked it. So this is a great suggestion. I have not heard of it, but a mermaid and a plague doctor, creepy cults. It sounds like there's a little bit of an apocalyptic world going on. I feel like this hits on a lot of the things that I asked for, and that sounds amazing. Okay, so next one is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I have read this one. I love Stephen Graham Jones, so that is a solid suggestion. And she said, since you like Grady Hendrix, why not try Night of the Mannequins? It's darkly funny, which I agree with. Fast-paced novella. Yeah, that's a great rec. Okay, the next one is Ring Shout by P. DeJelly Clark, which I haven't read. I have read a book by this author before, but not this one. Ring Shout is one of my favorite reads of the last couple years, and how it uses cosmic horror never fails to blow me away. Set in the 1920s Georgia, this haunting and fantastical horror tale follows a foul-mouthed sharpshooter and a Harlem hellfighter as they pursue vengeance and fight a supernatural Ku Klux Klan. Clark channels and spoofs kitschy tropes of early pulp horror while weaving in African culture, American history, and deeply resonant socio-political themes. That sounds great. This is a book that I have heard about. I know it's very beloved, so this sounds like a great recommendation. And we have one more, Wonderland by Zoji Stage. Have not heard of this one. Since you enjoyed The Hollow Places, you might like Wonderland, a supernatural psychological thriller. This story follows Orla, a retired ballet dancer, as she and her family move to a remote farmhouse in upstate New York. Almost immediately, her tween daughter senses something is very wrong with the surrounding woods, and both the family and the house are soon tormented by inexplicable phenomenon. With a snowbound setting, intensifying pace, and darkly lyrical writing, this is an unflinching take on the haunted house trope. Okay, that sounds really good too. She also gave like alternate recs for some of these. So she said, want more post-apocalyptic and witchy action with your cultist dark fantasy, check out Extasia by Claire Legrand. But for a title that leans more cheeky humor side, check out John Dies at the End by Jason Pargin. And then for cosmic horror in a more modern urban setting, try The Worm and His Kings by Haley Piper, which I have read that one. Wow, okay. A lot going on there. Oh my God, these are great. These are really, really great. I think Maddie killed it again. Okay, of the 8 recommendations that she gave, I've read 3 of them. One of them is like an all-time favorite of mine. So that was very spot on. I think the ones that I am most leaning towards are The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw and Ring Shout. Those just sounded really, really good. I think though I'm gonna open up the TBR service recs now and see what they recommended me, and then I will make my final selections for what I'm gonna be reading, but I am very, very happy with this. For as little information as I gave her, she really killed it. I feel like you can tell that they put a lot of thought into this, and I understood why she picked each of these books. It makes sense. So, TBR, Tailored Book Recommendations, they sent me my pigeon. So it says, your pigeon is ready, and it is a letter. Let's open it up and see what they gave me. Recommendation letter. Hi, Riley. Welcome to TBR. I'm Ray, and I'm here to help you find your next great read. For today's pick, I chose 3 spooky books that I think you'll love. The first pick is a sci-fi and horror mix. Okay. The second is a cosmic horror novel, and the third is a dark fantasy. Okay, so far sounds good. Number 1, We Have Always Been Here. Have not heard of that. You're looking for more space horror books. Let me introduce you to We Have Always Been Here. This is a very creepy and atmospheric novel with a sort of cabin fever situation in space, and the main character doesn't know who to trust as things get weirder and weirder. The story follows a psychologist named Grace Park sent on a space mission to observe the mental health of a ship's crew. She does her job well enough, and she ends up befriending the androids on board. One day, due to a radiation storm, the crew is stranded inside their ship, and both androids and humans start acting strangely. That sounds really, really good. Okay, so far these are sounding great. All right, number 2, Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. Next, you want to read more cosmic horror, which is why I think you'll enjoy Meddling Kids. With a dash of dark humor and some serious Scooby-Doo vibes, this is a super unique story. The book follows ex-members of the Lythan Summer Detective Club. They used to solve cases and unmask monsters when they were teens, but one fateful night in 1977 changed everything. Now, more than 20 years later, the group is still dealing with the trauma of that day, and it's time to face their worst nightmares by going back to where it all began. That sounds really great too. Oh my god, okay. And then the last one is The Book Eaters by Suni Dean. Last but not least, I picked this book because I think it has a nice mix of several things you enjoy reading. It's a dark fantasy book with some horror elements like dark magic, plus it features a very cult-like family. The Book Eaters follows Devon, a woman who belongs to the family. They are a clan of book eaters. They feast upon the contents of any story for sustenance. Devon's life is ruled by her clan, so she's raised on a specific diet of fairy tales and cautionary stories, but her whole life is turned upside down when her son is born because of his hunger is not for words, but for minds. Okay. Wow. Okay, a lot to process there. Meddling Kids I have heard of before, and then The Book Eaters I've heard of before. Here, I guess, are all of the recommendations that I've gotten, and I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick 2 from each, so I'll read 4 books total. So I think from the librarian recs, the ones that I wanna read are The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw and Ring Shout by P.G. Jelly Clark. Those are the ones that I'm the most drawn to at the moment. And then with the TBR service, I don't know, they all sound good. I'm kind of being drawn to The Book Eaters, and then maybe Meddling Kids. We Have Always Been Here does sound really good, and I might save that and read that at another time, but The Book Eaters and Meddling Kids are the ones I think I'm feeling in the mood for. I'm going to start collecting the books, seeing if my library has them, if I can get them used, and then I'll come back once all of the books have come in. But just from face value, just reviewing what I think so far of, like, if all of these recommendations I feel like were what I was asking for, I think they are. There's nothing that I'm like, why was that recommended? So all of the books have arrived. Here are the 4 books that I will be reading in this video. We have the 2 from the paid TBR service and the 2 from the librarian. And I do feel like this is a good mix of like different types of horror, like a cosmic horror, a dark culty fantasy, and like alternate history horror, and then kind of like apocalyptic. I am going to start reading, and I'm going to start with the TBR service books. I'm DNFing it. Oh my god, I hated this. I really was not liking it at all because I was getting very, very weird vibes with all of the queer representation in this book. There is a romantic relationship between the 2 female main characters. The vibe that I was getting from it was just very weird and like predatory because, so one of them, what was her name? Andy, she's an out lesbian. And then the other character, as far as we know, is not. There's a scene where the character who's not a lesbian is very traumatized. Like something had just happened and she's so traumatized, she's a mess. And the other character, Andy, just like randomly kisses her. And it's very weird because before that scene, there was no indication that there was like something romantic going on between them. There was no lead up to it. So she just like kisses her out of nowhere as she's like very traumatized and is like having an anxiety attack. And then even afterwards, she's like, you know, that was very sweet that you kissed me, but I'm not into girls. And then Andy goes, but have you tried? It just, their whole relationship felt like a lesbian relationship through a male gaze. It was just very weird. I got very weird vibes from that. It was making me feel really uncomfortable. So I ended up just deciding to skip to the end to like read the ending of the book. And it got worse. It got worse. Basically, the ending of the book, you find out that the villain the entire time is actually a trans person. In the context of the book, they're not a labeled trans person, but they changed their gender from a man to a woman. And that was how they were able to stay hidden and no one knew who they were. I think it's a very weird choice considering this is all based on Scooby-Doo. Like, that is very heavy-handed that it's based on Scooby-Doo, where in Scooby-Doo, all of the villains at the end of the episodes take off their mask and reveal who they truly are. So to equate that to a trans person is a very dangerous comparison to make. And then there's even a quote. I have to read you guys this. I actually couldn't believe what I was reading. So the main character, when they're confronting the villain after they realize that the villain is now a woman, the main character kicks her in the crotch. And then when the villain doesn't react, Andy goes, ugh, I was hoping you'd still have your birth genitals. And then they all laugh. Am I overreacting? I don't think I am, but I'm like, just the way that queer people are written in this book is really not sitting right with me. And so I'm DNFing it. I think there was maybe like 100-ish pages that I didn't read, and I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to think about this book anymore. It's not for me. I don't like it. This was definitely not a success. I mean, even on top of all that, there was very weird like writing things that the author was doing where every once in a while he would like switch from like a normal narrative into screenplay for absolutely no reason, and that was very weird and jarring, and every time it happened it would take me out of the story. I didn't like this. This wasn't for me. I don't recommend it. The vibes were off. It was very weird, and I'm really disappointed because it sounded so good, and honestly it started off very promising. I have started The Book Eaters. I am only a couple chapters in, but so far I'm enjoying it. It takes place in dual timeline. It starts off present day. We're following this main character named Devin. We find out that her son has a very special condition where he has to eat human brains to live, to survive. So she goes out on the town all the time to find people to bring back so her son can feed on them. In the first chapter, like the person that she's lured back to her house is a vicar, and then she asks him, are you a good person? And then she shoves him into this room, locks the door, and she can hear him screaming as her son like sucks his brains out like a Slurpee. And I'm like, hello? And then in chapter 2 we flash back 22 years ago. So now we're following Devin when she is a child, and we find out that she comes from this race of people called book eaters, and they consume actual pages. Like they open up a book, rip out the pages and eat them, and they consume the stories inside. Because she is a girl, she's been raised on a specific diet where she can only eat fairy tales, where girls are princesses who are in towers and saved by men, because the stories that they consume make up their personalities. And there's a very kind of cult-like feeling around this family, this book eater society. It's very strange, very weird. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I will say I have been listening to the audiobook and following along in the physical book, and the font in here is teeny tiny. I don't know if it's translating on camera. The font, she's small. She's very small. So I'm kind of like, I might just do just audio. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect with this book because I'm kind of going into it not knowing much about it. I've always heard people talk about this and seen the cover, but the cover really does nothing for me. The cover's not very good, so I've never been super intrigued by it. We'll see how it goes. god. Hold on. Okay, I have just about 50 pages left of The Book Eaters. I feel like my enjoyment of it has greatly gone down. Like, the ideas of this book are really cool and interesting. I just don't like the execution. They have all these really cool ideas, but then it's focusing on the not interesting ideas. I'm like, wait, tell me more about that thing over there. And they're like, no. We're gonna talk about this thing right here that you're uninterested in. I'm gonna talk about that. Ignore the thing over there. The book eater aspect of this, which I thought sounded so cool, and I still think sounds so cool, goes nowhere. It's like, you could take that out of the book and the book would say the same. And I'm like, oh, okay. Honestly, this book is giving much more Handmaid's Tale. That's what it's really about. It's really about women in any type of like oppressive society or culture and their fertility being used against them. Because basically the book eater species don't have many women. There's like 7 women. And so they have this very oppressive culture around the women procreating. And so basically any of the book eater women, they get married off to a man to have a child. They're able to stay with that child for 3 years, and then they have to leave and move on to another family and have a child for another man, and then move on to another family with another man and have another child with that man. So it's mostly about the main character being a mother who has already been ripped from one of her children and is now trying to protect her other child, who was born as a mind eater, which is like kind of like a corrupted version of a book eater, where they want to suck people's brains out like a blow pop. But that's what the book is about. It's about motherhood. Yeah, I don't find that very interesting. I don't pick up books specifically that are like that. I actively avoid things that are like The Handmaid's Tale because it's greatly depressing to me. And I would much rather this have focused on like the magical, fantastical elements, and it's just not. But there's nothing that I can say is like outwardly bad about it. Like the writing's not bad, the character's not really bad. I'm just uninterested. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm gonna see how it ends and I'll come back and give you my final thoughts. Okay, I finished. I think I'm gonna end up giving this like 3 stars. My thoughts really didn't change at all from the ending. It's not that it's a bad book, I just think it wasn't what I was expecting or what I had hoped it would be. I feel like all of the things that I was the most interested in were the things that were the least expanded upon. I think I would read another book from this author though, because like I said, it wasn't that it was bad. Oh my god, to be honest, I probably should have read the blurb on the back instead of the synopsis, because the synopsis makes it seem like it's gonna be more fantasy about the book eaters, but the blurb from Sean and Maguire says, a beautiful, delicate, cruel, utterly unique look at tradition, motherhood, and trauma. That is a more apt description. You know, in Sean and Maguire we trust. I really should have read that and I didn't. I'm glad I read it because I've always been interested in it and always wondered what I would think of it, but it is a 3-star. So as of right now, the TBR service has given me a DNF and a 3-star book. We are now going to move on to the librarian book recommendations, and fingers crossed that these go better. Okay, I meant to film more clips while I was reading The Salt Grows Heavy, but I read it in one sitting and I was obsessed with it, and then I immediately read it again. This is such a quick book. You can easily read it in an afternoon, in like an hour. I devoured it. I loved it. 5 stars. 5 stars. I'm obsessed. I feel like there's not like too much about the plot that I can say without giving it away because it is so short. Actually under 100 pages, so it's very quick. But this is proof that you do not need a ton of pages to tell a well thought out, well executed story. All I can say about the plot is that you're following a vengeful mermaid who had her tongue cut out by her husband. Her mermaid daughters have just wreaked havoc across the world and like eaten everybody. So we have this like cannibalistic apocalypse, and she comes across this mysterious plague doctor and they have a little bit of a connection, so together they go on this journey, and as they're traveling they discover these really creepy kids in a forest that lead them back to their cult community and these strange surgeons that they worship. It is a story about revenge, immortality, life. The vibes of this book I would compare to like, I don't know, I was getting like Over the Garden Wall. as I was reading it. Like I was kind of picturing it like that, just like a very creepy, dark setting, especially when they stumble into this like little community of people doing very, very weird cult behaviors, and they're like, what's going on here? But the reason I'm comparing it to Over the Garden Wall is because even though it is still so dark, like it's very, very gory, body horror to the max, it still has like a little bit of a whimsical fairy tale vibe. The original version fairy tales, like the dark fairy tales, not Disney. There was also romance. The connection between the mermaid and the plague doctor, I loved reading their love story unfold. I'm just, oh my God, it was so amazing. I'm like, how did Cassandra Khaw pack so much into such a short story? I was eating it up. I was feasting. For me, the writing style really complemented the main character of the mermaid because her vocabulary choice is very interesting. And she says at one point that it is purposeful because since she had her tongue taken from her and her words literally taken from her, it's given her a lot of time to think about what she wants to say. And she's very purposeful with her word choices. I feel like the writing style really fit that. It's just this like amazing juxtaposition of disgusting, gross gore, but then this very like whimsical writing style. And this is definitely going in my stack of horror books that I actually think are love stories and have just such amazing romance in it. I loved the two main characters. I actually cried in this book, which is, everything that happened in this, everything that it invoked in me, it's so crazy that it's less than 100 pages. I'm actually like shocked at how much I came to love these characters so much, to the point where it affected me that I cried. This book is not gonna be for everybody, but I feel like it's for somebody, and that somebody is me. I have another book by Cassandra Khaw on my TBR, on my shelves, that I'm definitely like moving higher up onto my TBR. This one is a sci-fi horror. I just can't believe this was 5 stars. Halfway into Ring Shout. So far, it's very interesting. So this is kind of like alternate history a little bit. Basically, it's taking place in the early 1900s after the movie A Birth of a Nation came out. In this world, the person who made that movie, the guy, was a sorcerer, and he basically used the movie to stir up so much hatred that it like summoned demons into the world. Not only is there like the Ku Klux Klan, but there is also monsters called Ku Kluxes who feast upon humans' hatred. So they have like taken over the bodies of all of these Klan members and turned into monsters. And so we're following a main character and a group of characters who are all Ku Klux hunters, and their job is to like hunt them down. It's very interesting so far. I feel like for me the most interesting part of it is like the actual like history part of it, and like figuring out exactly how these demons are kind of like profiting off of the intense racial hate that is going on. I love the audiobook narrator. Oh my God, the audiobook narrator, 10 out of 10. She's giving a performance. It's only one narrator, but she's acting her heart out, and I feel like she's really, really bringing it to life. Like I said, I'm halfway, so I think I'll be able to finish this pretty quickly. It's not very long, and then I will come back with my final thoughts. Okay, I'm just checking that I'm recording. Before I give you my thoughts on Ring Shout, I just want to say, these are my favorite candies right now. I've only been able to find them at Target. So the last time that I was there, I bought like a few of them, and this is my last bag, and I only have a few left, but I love them. They're strawberry, and they're like jelly filled. Oh my God, they're so good. Let me get comfy to talk about this. I finished Ring Shout. I think I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars, which I feel really bad about because everybody that I've heard talk about this book raves about it, loves it, gave it 5 stars. And it's one of those books where there was nothing wrong with it. I can totally see why it's 5 stars for other people. I can see why it is so beloved. I think it does a really, really great job at combining history and horror. And I actually learned a lot too. I learned that there is actually like a carving in Stone Mountain of like 3 of the top Confederate figures that's kind of like Mount Rushmore, and I'm like, I had no idea about that. This was definitely more of like, it's me, not the book. For such a short book, there was so much action in it, which does not sound like a bad thing unless you're somebody like me who doesn't love fight scenes. I just don't like reading fight scenes. I get lost very easily when people are fighting. It's hard for me to like stay in the story, and the majority of this book was monster hunting, fighting these monsters, and I just kept getting a little bit lost. If it had been a little longer, it might have worked better because then there would have been more like slower moments in between all the fighting, but because it's so short, that just took up a good percentage of the book, and that's not personally what I enjoy. Also, since this is cosmic horror, at the very end of the book, this isn't really a spoiler, but at the very end of the book, there is reference to something evil happening in Providence, Rhode Island, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. So I did a little Googling of like Providence, Rhode Island, and I think that that's a reference to H.P. Lovecraft. I'm pretty sure it was, and I kind of liked the call out. So yeah, this is definitely a book that I would recommend to people if it sounds great to you, if you love horror that really imbues a lot of history into it. I think that this was great. For my personal taste as a reader, it wasn't my favorite. So I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. I'm glad that I finally read it because everybody loves this book. So now that I've finished all of the books, I thought I'd just do a little overview of how this went for me. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the librarian recs went better than the TBR service. From the TBR service, I had a DNF, which would probably have ended up being a 1-star if I finished it, and a 3-star. And then from the librarian recs, I had a 5-star and a 3.5 star. So the librarian recs just went so much better. I'm gonna say, I personally loved the TBR service, their questionnaire, how detailed it was, how much information they asked for, and this definitely could be a case of if I did the TBR service again, the recommendations might get better for me. These were just kind of a miss. That third book might have been great. I definitely will try it out at some point, but I feel like as of right now, I would not recommend the service, also because they raised their prices since I signed up. It was $15 for 3 book recommendations, and now they've raised it to $18, which is just a little, it's a little much. It's a little much when you're not even getting the books. I would be very curious to know who like their target customer is, because the only people that I've seen use this service are other booktubers who are using it to make content. But I want to know, like, who is the general customer who is paying $18 to get book recommendations when there are just so many outlets where you can get free book recommendations. And as we've seen, the librarian recs were amazing and just as detailed with so much less information as well. I definitely would recommend checking out your local library's website and seeing if they have a feature on there where you can request for recommendations. I know a lot of libraries offer this, but also you could probably just go into your library and ask a librarian for recommendations. That's like partially what they're there to do. So if I were to recommend one of these services over the other, I would 100% recommend asking your librarian for recommendations. I do think I would give the TBR service one more chance just to see if the recommendations do get better after a second time. So let me know if you guys would like to see that, and I can do another round of book professional recommendations. But this was definitely a success for me just for the fact that I read a 5-star book in here. If you never watched the first episode that I did last year, I will link it down below and you can go check it out. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe and check out my Patreon where I post tons of exclusive content. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!